All right, I am here with Michelle, and I'm so excited to bring her on today because recently I've been getting lots of emails and messages from people who are like, I just got promoted or I just got given this extra responsibility. And I thought, you know what? I want to know more about that. And I figured you guys might too. So we're going to have a quick chat with Michelle here. It's going to be like rapid fire questions. So Michelle, you gotta speed answer. Because we're all used to watching TikToks, so like 5-second attention span is what we've got, so we're gonna have to keep it exciting. So why don't you just start by introducing yourself, tell us what your position is, where you're working, if you're comfortable talking about your facility. If not, you can just tell us zoo or aquarium or shelter, whatever you want, right? You can keep it a little vague if you need to, and then I'm gonna jump into my questions.
My name is Michelle. I was just promoted to curator actually at a new facility. And previously I was a senior keeper at Utah's Hogle Zoo.
Awesome. And how long have you been in the field? Tell me a little bit about your career trajectory, right? Did you start with an ant farm in your bedroom when you were 5, or, tell me all about it.
So I grew up actually on a hobby farm. So I had horses growing up and dogs. I actually trained dogs when I was in like high school because I saw actually an agility demonstration. And I was like, that looks like the coolest thing ever. I want to do that. And then I think that's where I like kind of started like getting my training bug of like, this is so cool. And somewhere around that time, I also decided that I wanted to pursue marine mammal training as my career. So I went to UC Santa Cruz for college. And one of the reasons I wanted to go there is because they have resident marine mammals on campus. So I was like very efficient. I was like, cool, I can go to college and I can volunteer at the same time. One-stop shopping. So I started volunteering at a lab that had seals and sea lions, basically while I was still a student. So I volunteered all of the time, like as much as they would possibly let me. I volunteered. So I volunteered for 2 years there. I did an internship there. And then after I graduated, it was about 6 months later that I was able to get my first paid position. So by then I'd already done one internship and about 2.5 years of volunteering.
Awesome. And I'm assuming the volunteering and the internship was all unpaid, correct?
Yes, it was all unpaid. The internship I did get credit for. So kind of bonus, like I paid for it, but it helped my degree. So that was nice. But otherwise, yeah, I totally paid for everything.
And what was your first paid position? Were you like a keeper assistant or keeper one?
I was just, they didn't have so much specific levels. I was just marine mammal trainer.
Okay.
I would say that yeah, the facility didn't really have a level 1 or a level 2. They had kind of just baseline, you are a person. And then they had like senior. So I was just a marine mammal trainer. I started and did basically all the tasks from the get-go. I started doing shows by myself, working an animal while narrating in about 6 weeks.
Wow.
So like I started solo training animals within a couple of weeks. And so it was a pretty quick progression into working animals. I started with seals and sea lions, which is what my background had been, although I'd never done shows before. So that was pretty fast. And then after being there for 6 months, then I got cross-trained on dolphins. So then I did dolphins, and it was a facility that did a lot of shows and encounters. So I learned how to do various different kinds of shows and public narrations, and then also lots of VIP interactions and in-water encounters and things like that.
Awesome. Was that a smaller facility or a larger facility?
I would say, so it's interesting over time how your perspective changes.
Right.
It is a very small facility. However, they had a decently large staff.
Okay.
So I would say the facility was quite small. But as far as like animals, we had probably 20 pinnipeds. So like a lot of animals, but land-wise, we were quite small. And our marine mammal staff was probably 25 people.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, and that's the luxury for any of you like land loving animals. If you're a hoof stock keeper or primate keeper out there, your keeper to animal ratios are very different depending upon what species you're working with. So if you're an elephant, obviously it's usually like what is the minimum? I think it's 2 keepers per 1 elephant. And that's almost similar to marine mammals, I think. So how long were you there?
I was there for 3 years.
Awesome. Was it always easy?
It was very seldom easy. Being a small facility, so, and by that I mean like small privately owned, it was a for-profit facility. But also we did stranding care, so rescue and rehab too. There was a huge variety, and I would say the benefit that I got from that was in 3 years, I got to do probably proportionately more than I would have at a bigger facility. So I got to do all aspects of everything. I learned, all about filtration and water quality and 100% of all of the animal care and participating in all of the medical procedures and leading medical procedures and helping with transports and also doing all of the stranding stuff with all the medical stuff and the overnight care and baby watches. And, so it was really like, you got to do everything very fast. So I think that's one of the advantages of being at a smaller facility, is in that 3 years, I really did a lot. It was definitely like I would say we had very good animal care. The human care was very poor. It was very much they specifically did not want to schedule you 2 days off consecutively because you might go out of town. And if you went out of town, you wouldn't be on call if they wanted to call you in because they might need you for something. And you worked really strange hours and also kind of having to support the stranding area and the regular area. You might work 7 to 4 and then come back at 11 and work until 6 and then come back at 4 p.m. and then work until midnight. And then it was your day off, so maybe they would only make you work till 6 a.m. and then you'd get 24 hours until you had to be back, or 12 hours minimum. And that was your day off. And that was kind of an exhausting way of living. So at the end of 3 years, I was the 3rd most senior person on staff.
So high turnover rate. Yeah. You're pointing out a lot of things that I think are really important though. It's hard and not all, like when the animals are the priority, sometimes the people come second. And maybe that's the way I think that's the way it should be, right? Animals first, team second, self third. They say that in the military as well, like mission first, team second, self third. And I think that should be that way in zoos and aquariums as well, but there's probably a little bit better balance that we could find for sure. But starting out in those smaller facilities, a lot of people are nervous to do that. Were they accredited by AZA or ZAA or any of the marine mammal?
They were AMPA accredited, so the Alliance.
Okay, so sometimes these facilities that you might start out at don't have any accreditation, but that can sometimes mean you get to learn at a rate that you would never imagine, which can be really awesome jumpstart into your career. So where'd you go after that?
I actually went back to the lab that I had volunteered at as an undergrad. I went back and worked there for 2 years. And then from there, I actually got the job at Utah's Hogle Zoo. So I just kind of went back and kind of regrouped, and they'd gotten new animals and I had, more responsibility, able to do new things there. And then I came to Hogle Zoo because they were opening a new area that was going to feature marine mammals. And specifically, they needed somebody to come in and start their pinniped area. So I had the opportunity to come in and start a pinniped area. So with seals and sea lions from scratch.
That's awesome. And were you just a keeper at Hogle, or did you move into the senior trainer role there, or did you start at the senior trainer role?
moved into it, but by moved into it, it wasn't really a position based on the title is only based on years of service. It's not, there was no difference in responsibilities. There was no getting promoted kind of thing. It was just you have been here so long, so that is when you qualify. So I will say that that was extremely unceremonious. The responsibilities I had at the beginning are very similar to the responsibilities I had the entire time. It did change throughout the time, but I definitely did not get more responsibilities over time. So, but I mean, I came in and I did transports and I taught staff and I had, young animals and had to work on training narrations and training shows and training encounters. So there was a lot of responsibility right off the bat.
Did they calculate so you said it like getting to the senior trainer position there is just number of years served. Does it matter how many years you served beforehand, or is it like a clean slate? It's number of years at that facility.
They have since changed it. But when I started there, they only counted your previous experience as half time.
Okay.
And so they heavily weighted it on years served there. And at 10 years, you magically graduated to senior keeper.
So that tells us that you were there for how many years?
I was there for 10 years.
Awesome. And then your most recent change, this is super fresh, is into the curator role. So
Yes.
tell us just briefly a little bit about that.
So, I mean, I worked a position for 10 years, and obviously in the beginning, there was a ton of responsibility because we had to build a new area and get it off the ground. After a while, a new area becomes an established area and it's not the new area anymore. And while you have challenges all the time, and I'm not saying that our area ever stopped having anything new going on ever. I don't think we ever had a 6-month period where we didn't have something drastically different and new happening. But that being said, the level of new changes becomes less different. Getting a new animal almost becomes routine, not that it is less chaotic, but you're like, okay, we're getting a new animal, we're trading animals, we're doing intros. It becomes more routine, and I really wanted new opportunities and new challenges. And so for 5 years, the last 5 years, I was really interested in kind of growing myself, and it really just didn't happen. There were opportunities, and I tried to advance and I wasn't successful. And so finally, after 5 years, I decided I had to look elsewhere for an opportunity to advance. So that's when I started applying, and I was able to get a curator job at another facility pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you have a huge amount of experience underneath your belt. And in that 5 years that you were working on growing yourself, by that you mean also like upward trajectory, as in like some kind of title promotion that you were hoping for. But what did you do to earn that title or to be ready for that title? What kind of personal development were you doing?
So, I mean, the whole time I was at the zoo, I was actively engaging as a mentor. So I was mentoring people on my team. I was mentoring people in the whole zoo. I was a zoo-wide training mentor. I was onboarding new staff. I was coming up with new ways of onboarding and training staff in my area, and helping with, kind of revamping training areas and consulting with training programs in different areas. Outside of the zoo, I did take the Animals Amplified class, which is also, I think, really what told me I needed to move up and I was ready to move up, because it was really through finding out what is your why. And I realized a lot that my why had really shifted to wanting to support people. And that was when I really realized that I was ready for a different position. And that was really what I think, my next step towards feeling fulfillment and, feeling that growth was going to be. So I took that class. I took a few other classes. I got certified through NOCI, which is the National Network for Oceanographic climate change interpreters. I also started grad school to get a master's in biology. I attended conferences, IMATA conferences, AZA conferences. I started presenting at conferences on different accomplishments that we'd done at the zoo, that we'd done in my area, trying to get myself out there, trying to like challenge myself in those different ways, doing more reading, and kind of, you know, trying to like position myself more, that I was more aware of leadership growth, interpersonal development growth, things like that.
That's awesome. And it's what you're pointing out with like the difference in your why. Shameless plug for Animals Amplified course there. Thank you. But it's really important because sometimes we just see like, okay, I'm supposed to be a trainer 1, a trainer 2, a trainer 3, a lead trainer, a supervisor, and a curator, right? Like that's what, if I'm a successful zookeeper, that's what I do. But, you know, I've been talking a lot with friends lately about how leadership should not be a reward or the next step on the ladder, right? It's a different skill set. It's a different motivation. It's a different why. So really what you discovered there, that you got, you know, your why was more about seeing other people succeed. Like that's so important to recognize. If that's not your why, leadership doesn't have to be the next step for you. You know, there's lots of different trajectories that you can go on. You kind of talked about some of them, like presenting at conferences, becoming expert in, you know, in different topics. All of those things are still professional growth and, you know, moving your career forward. It just doesn't necessarily have to go with a title. Now, in your case, that's where it ended up, but it doesn't have to go that way, right? You know, and I think we forget that sometimes, both on a personal level and on a professional level. And it sounds like Hogle is no different than many places where time served kind of gets you into those leadership roles. So it's not the skills that you have. It's not that you're a great communicator, a great coach, or a great trainer, which may be the things that you really need to succeed in leadership, right? It's just, you've got a lot of time and you're a good keeper. So there you go, right? So that's something I hope the industry in general will start to kind of shift and focus on those skills a little bit more. So I'm assuming that means you were passed over for some roles that you applied for in your time. Did you get good feedback on why you were passed over, or is there still a little bitterness around that?
I was passed over 6 times. I would say that the first time was really eye-opening, and I was shocked and devastated. And you know, I took some time to like, you know, lick my wounds, and I sat down with every single one of our curators and asked them for feedback and listened to what they said. And it was kind of hard, and took a lot of things to heart, and really tried really hard to reflect on those things. Some of them I think were valid. Some of them I felt were, I think maybe people had an assumption about me that was not based on who I was, based on, you know, these people didn't really work with me. And that one was harder because I was like, I don't think that really reflects who I am. So some of them I felt were harder to be productive about, but definitely meant like, okay, then you have to work on your image. You have to work on how you're perceived. Some of them I was like, okay, I will try my best to take this feedback and work on it and do what I can, even though I felt, you know, I felt I was doing a great job. And up until that point, I'd had nothing but exceptionally rave evals every single year, like got awards of excellence, was constantly rated, you know, as high as you possibly could get. So I had no reason to believe that there were any issues or that I would have any problems. And even after being denied promotion, I still got rave evals for the rest of the time I was there. I still consistently was rated like exceptionally exceeds expectations, outstanding on everything, but clearly it wasn't enough. So that was definitely a really hard challenge, was to balance, like, if I'm so great, why is that not enough? And, you know, over time, I would say the feedback became increasingly less helpful. And I think the takeaway that I got was that the role that I was in was the role that they wanted me to be in. And I was very useful in my current role. And for whatever reason, whether it wasn't in the institution's best interest or, sometimes there were just quite simply better candidates for the role. And I appreciate that. Didn't matter how great I was, somebody was actually a better fit. And I totally recognized that. But over time I was like, okay, I feel like I'm getting a pretty consistent message here that I don't know that there's much more I can do on myself.
So you feel, I mean, like I think so many people are quick to jump ship, and you have, like, just in outlining your career trajectory, 3 years at a difficult facility where maybe you weren't well taken care of. How many years back at the lab?
2.
2 years back at the lab, 10 years at the zoo. So, I mean, you're not a quitter. That is clear. And I think, some people maybe would have given up sooner than you. What made you not?
Some of it was like my personal life, like it was convenient to stay, and that definitely played a role in it. I think having a lot of, I really liked Salt Lake. I really liked the zoo. I really liked my area to some extent. I really liked my team. So a lot of those things made it more motivating to want to stay and want to try. The ownership I felt over the area, that was hard to walk away from. I think a lot of it is I felt like, I'd invested a lot and I felt I still had more to give. And so I think that was a lot of it was, I felt invested in this place and in this mission and in what I had been doing, and I wanted to do more of it here. And I was comfortable, like I was comfortable where I lived and I was comfortable with the rest of my job, and I wanted more, but it wasn't like my life was terrible.
Right. Well, and I'm assuming that now you look back and there's no regrets, right? You did everything in your power beyond. And so, does it make you more at peace with that decision to finally say goodbye, that you put in all of that work and took the time?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I tried as hard as I could, and I saw things through as far as I could have. And at some point I felt like then it was time to prioritize me.
Yeah.
And and giving myself permission to be like, okay, why don't you try?
So what's been the hardest? Let's move on to talking about where you're at now. Like, what's been the hardest about the transition? Like, you're coming into a leadership role. At all your other facilities, you moved up, with everyone or everyone who was there, right? You didn't come in a leadership role of above an existing team, and that can be really challenging. So talk as much as you feel comfortable about that.
I think that's definitely the nail on the head that I'm dealing with right now, is trying to, there's a lot of fear. Like, I've never technically been a manager before. I was like, what if I screw everything up? What if I'm terrible? What if there's a lot of expectations of, you're going to be amazing and we're so excited to have you. And I'm like, oh God, is that really deserved? Like, can I do this? And the bar is really high and they want a lot. They're very much like, we want leadership, we need excellent communication, we want great structure. And I'm like, cool, can I do all of those things? And so that's a huge thing. Being, there's definitely Lester syndrome, but there's also the reality of like a lot of this is kind of untested waters. So but it's scary. And the reality is, yeah, they're an established team, and coming into that is really daunting because you have to figure out, you don't want to rock the boat too much. You need to figure out, okay, what's going on with them, while simultaneously, looking at it from a different perspective of trying to kind of in the back of your mind evaluate like what's working, what maybe could be better, what are some ways that we could try different things, while trying to respect everything that they have going on, and trying to build a relationship with everybody. Everyone already has a relationship with each other. How do you come in and build a relationship and develop trust right out of the gates? And also coming in as a new manager, everyone's like immediately like, oh no, you're going to change everything. And some of it is innately your job. And at the same time, I want to be really careful and really respectful of that, of you don't need to change everything. And so how do we work on like coming to like a happy medium of like, I can find my groove and my role, and we can build a relationship, and we can respect everything that they have going on and everything that they have built. And I would say that's the biggest challenge, and is very daunting. And then the fear of like, you don't have a trust bank with these people. I worked somewhere for 10 years. I knew everybody. I was usually the person that trained the new people. So from the gates, I had a relationship with people. And, so you make a bad call, you make a bad decision, you make a decision people don't like, they might get mad at you for like a second, but they're probably not going to hold it against you forever. And now like not having that rapport with anybody is really scary, because I'm like, oh man, you make one mistake, you make one decision that they don't really like. And, you're talking about like training, you're talking about your trust bank. I don't have anything in the bank. So, being very cognizant of like, how do I build up my trust bank, and like also like kind of walk on this like tightrope while I'm trying to like build trust, and don't jeopardize that at all in the beginning while I'm trying to like build a relationship with people so that we have more resiliency in our relationship. And I would say that that's the hardest part right now. And then also coming from the comfort of knowing a facility for 10 years. And then for me personally, I built my area. I was there for the implementation of all protocols. I helped develop them all. So I have to like learn new protocols and new everything. And I'm like, man, this is, I haven't had to learn that level of new stuff in a long time. And there's, something innately about like, I built it. If there's a way you like it run, you just help build it. I mean, I didn't build it by myself. There was a team of us, but still like the amount of influence you have being on a team of 5 starting a program is way bigger. And so that's kind of daunting too, of that, learning 100% somebody else's system is, yes, something I've done several times in my career, but I haven't done it lately. And so that is also like a personal challenge that I'm like, oh yeah, I am super the new kid. And it's really awkward going into like, I don't know anybody. I don't know their systems. I don't know their structure. And I just feel like generically kind of lost all the time.
Well, I mean, I'm really impressed because all the things that you're talking about are all the things that you need to be thinking about, right? I think when a new manager comes in and they're like, I got this and it's fine, and give me the power and I will make us better, right? Like that's when things go south. But you're taking in all of those things. Your imposter syndrome is going to keep you humble, make sure that you remember those things. I love the trust bank correlation there, or I don't know what word I'm looking for, but you know what I mean, comparison, because it is so true. And we forget about it sometimes with people. I know I do. I'm so focused on all of the other things that I forget to just spend time to look up and say hi, right? Just the simple, like, be kind and say hi can be a small deposit. And what else did you say? When you were talking about learning new policies and procedures, when I started my most recent new position, the first code came out, and I had to, like, I didn't know their codes, right? They were all different from the ones I was used to. So I actually had them on my radio. So like I hear the code over the radio and I'm like looking at my radio and I'm like, oh, okay, I know what that is. I'm going, like, but it's just such a steep learning curve. Names, animals names, like just even that in itself is so challenging. You don't want to be the jackwagon who on the third day still doesn't know someone's name, but it's hard. There's so many people. So I feel your pain, but it sounds like you are going to do a great job, and you're going to make mistakes. Like that's going to happen, and as long as you're humble and honest about those things, I expect great things from you. Okay, wrap us up. What would you tell a new marine mammal trainer working at a facility that's kind of beating them up in their heart of hearts? Like, what would you tell them? What are the most important things if they want to be where you are in 10, 13, 14, 15, we won't talk about how many years, 16, I think is what I came up with, plus what advice would you give to them in let's say 1 minute?
I would say learn as much as you can. Definitely be open to any and all opportunities that you can learn. Don't be afraid of small facilities because you can learn a lot there. And I would say value your team. Your team is what's going to keep you sane. Your team is what's going to help you the most. The animals are amazing. Take every opportunity you can with them, but really having good relationships with your team is what's going to get you through. And, and also with your manager, like those relationships are what you're going to look back on and are going to like make the experience really positive for you. That's when, there's going to be a lot of days that are not very good, that are really hard. Every day is its own version of chaos. And it's really the people around you that are going to help you get through it. So I would focus on that and having a good team and trying to be positive, because anybody that is negative is going to bring it down everybody around you. So as much as you can try to be positive and try to be, a force for good on your team, the more it's going to help everybody around you. But that being said, do realize that you have value. And at some point, not every situation is going to be perfect for you. And there are other facilities out there. And sometimes we get so invested in these animals and we get in so deep that, we push ourselves kind of past where our boundaries should have been. And I think it's important to kind of recognize where your boundaries are and to be really defensive of your boundaries and realize that, okay, if you're being pushed past a point that's not comfortable for you, think about what it is you value most. There are other facilities out there. You can try something else. Maybe a different team would be a better fit. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But also I would look at things that you can control. What is your mindset? Are you being really negative? Are you focused on what you can't do? Are you, try to think of the things you can do. Try to think of opportunities you can get. What can you learn? How can you help the animals that you're working with? How can you, do you get to engage with the public and like watch them light up when you have them interact with an animal or teach them something? Think about when you get to work with a brand new intern and, see them light up because, you're helping their dreams come true. And like, think about those things, because sometimes we can get really frustrated with just like the day-to-day monotony. And I think that's a divide that we need to be aware of. Like, not all jobs have things that are hard. So also focus on things that are like good in your day, and take a time in your day to find something in your day that is positive, and try to build off of that and think about also what are you doing that benefits you. And I think as long as you're moving generically in a path where every day or every week or every month you're like, okay, this was fun for me, or this benefited me, or I really learned from that, then I think you're in a good place and you're definitely moving in the right direction.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I loved this. I'm very excited to share it with the world. So yeah, signing off. We will talk to you again soon and see whose life we can open up and peer into next.